Yasmin was born in Brooklyn and attended two private Muslim girls' schools in New Jersey until the 7th grade. She has been covering her hair since she was 5 years old, when it was an optional part of her school uniform, and says she could never now imagine not doing so. "I would feel like I'm walking around naked," she says. She has always lived the life of a religious Muslim, praying 5 times a day, fasting during the month of Ramadan, and abstaining from dating, alcohol, and pork. Once, when we were setting up a place to meet, she wrote me an email suggesting we go to a midtown Manhattan eatery she frequents. "It's owned by Moroccans," she explained, "and the bacon they serve is made from turkey meat. We can sit by the window munching down on what appears to be pork, LOL," she wrote. Ismail, her father, is an Egyptian Muslim who married Jeanette, a Filipina Catholic, after they met in the 1980s through a mutual friend in New York. Their union gives Yasmin her unique looks, a sandy complexion, puffy lips, and black currants for eyes. Her aunts on her mother's side have Bibles and crosses all over their houses, but her mother converted to Islam when Yasmin was a little girl. Her parents are both professionals, and when their girls began growing up and their parents' jobs began swallowing too much time, they made a decision that one of them would remain at home. Ismail, who had been a teacher, said he would stay, and he started up a small business that he could run from his house while he looked after the welfare and schooling of his 4 daughters. Like many immigrant parents, they believed that nothing is more important for their children than a good education. In private school, Yasmin learned Arabic and the fundamentals of Islam, along with a basic curriculum. But her parents felt that the public schools offered better quality schooling at the junior, high, and high school levels. Her father especially didn't want to disadvantage Yasmin's chances for medical school, his dream for his daughter. He enrolled Yasmin at McKinley Junior High School in Brooklyn, and 2 years later she entered Fort Hamilton High School. Fort Hamilton is in an August residential area of Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, that sits high on a cliff overlooking New York Harbor. Immediately below is Shore Parkway, a constantly busy stretch of highway curving around South Brooklyn. But Fort Hamilton is perched high enough away from the road that the traffic noise immediately below isn't a bother. The homes here are large and Victorian, many more than a century old, and they continue for several tree-abundant blocks in all directions. In Fort Hamilton, everything is quiet and serene. People generally keep to themselves, waving a hello when they pick up their morning mail. The area feels much less gritty and metropolitan than most of Brooklyn, and more like some densely populated coastal town. The high school in Fort Hamilton could pass for an expansive red brick antebellum mansion. It has a soaring tower topped with a cupola, unobstructed harbor views in the front, a full swimming pool inside, a well-maintained athletic field behind, handball courts nearby. The school is also close to a historic military installation that is still in use, the actual Fort Hamilton, built in 1825 to protect the coast from invaders. Now in this newcomer neighborhood, composed of large Greek, Arab, and Italian populations, many of the residents' children and others from beyond the immediate area attend the high school, one of New York City's largest. In the beginning of her freshman year at Fort Hamilton, Yasmin tried out for the swim team. To get to the swimming pool, she had to pass by a room where two of her friends were always busy in some kind of group activity. Yasmin wondered what the room was, and she eventually discovered that it was the classroom of the leadership program, which contained the student government offices. Leadership was a required class for student officers and an elective class for those interested in student government. "Oh, that sounds kind of cool," she thought. "How do I become part of it?" In the spring, the next round of student elections was announced on the school's PA system, and Yasmin mulled it over. That voice in her head told her, "I probably don't have a chance of winning because no one is going to elect a girl who covers her hair." But she ignored her own misgivings, challenging herself as she frequently does. She picked up the application and looked over the documents. The whole process was astonishingly bureaucratized, a lesson in institutional democracy. You had to sign the application and get a parent's signature. You needed to provide a host of things: a photocopy of your school ID, a written recommendation from a teacher, a copy of your transcript, and other supplementary items. You had to have earned an 80% or higher grade average. You could not have failed a class or have had any type of school infraction. And you needed 100 signatures in blue ink from your fellow students. All applications also had to be vetted and approved by the election committee. So any irregularity risked voiding your electoral dreams. And since Fort Hamilton was known for having a strong leadership program, the school had previously sent a student to serve on the New York City's Board of Education. Yasmin expected that it would be a tough and selective process. At other schools, leadership was just a class where you went, sat, and ate, she told me. At Fort Hamilton, she said, leadership was hardcore. Next came deciding what to run for. The presidency was too high an aspiration for a freshman, she judged, so instead she aimed for secretary. It was a Goldilocks decision for her. Not too high and not too low, but just right, she said. She collected her documents and began thinking about her campaign speech. At the bottom of the application was a statement that read, "I hereby certify that these signatures were obtained justly, honestly, and in a manner outlined by the election committee. To the best of my knowledge, all of the above signed are currently Fort Hamilton High School students. I understand that if it is found that these signatures were obtained in a dishonest manner, I will be disqualified from running in this or any other student organization election." She gathered the required signatures and had her father sign the form in blue ink.